Hi everyone that's joining. I can see the participant numbers ticking up. Thank you for coming to see us today on what I hope is a sunny day for you as well. Thank you for taking time out. I'm just going to give it a little bit longer because it takes a little while for everyone to filter through Zoom and join us in this virtual room. Hi Manly. Hi everyone. If you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, please do so. Let us know who you are, where you're dialing in from, maybe what the weather's like with you. Hi everyone that's just joining. Hi Sophie. Hi Matt. Nice to see everyone saying hello through the chat. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so I can see the number of people joining has leveled off, so I'll get cracking. A big welcome to the event today, and thank you again for taking time out of your busy days, I'm sure, and also your sunny days to join us. I'm Beth, I'm the People Lead at Investors in People, and I'll be hosting you for the next hour or so for this really interesting discussion. So I'm sure you have a ton of questions for our panel today, so I'd encourage you to pop those through on the Q&A function, and then any other kind of chat, if you've got ideas, considerations, thoughts on what's being discussed, please do pop them through the chat. It's lovely to see everyone getting engaged on there already. We'll have a bit of an initial discussion and then we'll work towards a good sort of 20 minutes, 25 minutes of Q&A at the end, because I think that's where we get all the juicy questions, and that's the bit that I love most for sure. So our big topic for today is the power of apprenticeships, and to help us explore this from every angle, we've got an expert panel today, which is made up of Paul Devoy, CEO of Investors in People. We've got Robert Halfon MP, Clare Sutcliffe MBE from Multiverse, and Jack Parsons, CEO of the Youth Group. So I'll just go to some introductions. I'll start with you first, Paul.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Devoy. I'm Chief Executive of Investors in People. I've been the Chief Executive since February 2017, when we led the business out of government ownership, and we're now a not-for-profit social enterprise. And we've got a very clear purpose to make work better. Everything that we do is around about trying to improve the workplace for individuals by creating more opportunities, improving the workplace for employers by helping them create more productive and sustainable organisations, improving workplaces for society, because the more good workplaces we create, the more good jobs we create, the more prosperous we are by people spending their salary in their local communities. So the more that we can make work better, the better society that we have, and that's our driving mission and ambition.
Thanks, Paul. So I'll go to you next, Jack.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all, even if it's virtually. I'm Jack Parsons. I'm the CEO of the Youth Group. We have a community of 1.7 million young people, and we've helped over 90,000 young people get into work, flip their duvets, and find something they're passionate about. I'm really passionate about apprenticeships because I was an apprentice myself. I grew up in a council estate. My mum was an alcoholic. I didn't have the opportunities that we all need young people to have, and an apprenticeship gave me that opportunity to get into the labour market and start to thrive and learn and grow and nurture. And so I've seen how apprentices can work well, and I can see how it works well as an employer myself, and also helping over 700 companies hire young people as well. On the side of running the youth group, I'm an international special advisor to the New Zealand government on youth. How can we help disadvantaged young people get into work? And I sit on several boards, including the inclusion board for Co-op and Capita Welfare. So nice to meet everyone, and I'm really interested to hearing from the other panelists as well.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for joining us today. I'll go to you next, Rob.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. I know we're going to do some remarks in a bit, but just to let you know, I've always been passionate about apprenticeships. My first ever speech in the House of Commons was to try and get schools to teach more about apprentices and encourage pupils to do it. And I was the first ever MP to employ full-time parliamentary apprentices in Westminster, and had never been really done before. And I've had 6, and the latest one is actually now employed in my office doing a job as a communications officer. And I was a previous a skills minister and tried to champion apprenticeships, further education. And I first met investors in people while I was doing that job, because as well as policy, I've always believed in evangelization of apprenticeships and skills, and also that businesses don't just need finance, businesses need recognition if they are doing quality apprenticeships for apprentices. And I think that's where the importance of investors in people come in, and that's why I'm really pleased to do this event today, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Well, thanks for being with us, and over to you, Claire.
Hi, I'm Clare Sutcliffe, VP of Community at Multiverse. Previously, I co-founded Code Club, which is an international network of volunteer-led after-school coding clubs for children aged 9 to 13. There are about 13,000 code clubs around the world in 160 countries, with about 200,000 children attending each week. I did that in 2012, as I say. Time has passed since then. Since starting Code Club, I've really become obsessed with how to level the playing field when it comes to accessing careers that use technology, which will make up the majority of careers in about 10 years' time. And when we get to answering the main question being posed today, I'll explain why I think Multiverse is the answer to that challenge. We're on a mission to create a diverse group of future leaders. Our apprenticeships allow companies to fill their critical skills gaps, particularly in digital and tech, and help a more diverse group of employees make their own way successfully through their careers. So really looking forward to this conversation today.
Fabulous. Thanks, Claire. And thank you to all of you for joining us on this panel today. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic discussion. And I can feel already there's so much passion in our virtual room. So I won't hold off any longer. Let's get stuck in. I'll go to you first, Rob. So how can apprenticeships be a power for good as we begin to recover economically from the last year?
Well, thank you. One of the reasons why I've always been so passionate about apprenticeships and skills is because I've always seen it as a ladder of opportunity, as particularly for those young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, but also to meet the skills need of our nation. And way before I was an MP, I think it was in about 2008, I remember going to a sort of rundown building where there were some young people doing some work with a charity called Catch 22, who all said to me that they wanted to do apprenticeships, but it was really hard to do it. The interview process was very hard. It was impossible to navigate the websites that were available. And I walked away from this building realizing that if I got elected as an MP, that I would do everything I could to promote apprenticeships, because I saw that what these young people wanted to do, and they were being denied that opportunity. So the key thing about apprenticeships to me is not only do you learn a skill, but you earn while you learn, and there's no debt. So when you go to university, I went to university, I didn't even know about apprenticeships. I was lucky, I had a free education at university, but nowadays people have to take on whacking loans. And yet those who do apprenticeships get 90% who complete get good jobs at the end, or go on to additional education, and they're being paid at the same time. The latest salaries data suggests that art graduates from degree courses at some of the new universities earn as little as $12,000 a year, half the average graduate wage. And the Times newspaper showed that fewer than half of students at some English universities can expect to find employment or further study shortly after graduation. As I've said, we know that apprentices get jobs, those who complete, and we know that degree apprenticeships, so you get a bit of both worlds, are virtually guaranteed a job on completion. I mentioned to you that I thought that one of my support for apprenticeships was about, a big reason was for social justice, because I want everyone to climb that ladder of opportunity. We know that 26% of level 2 apprenticeship starts come from the most disadvantaged areas in England. So they are a real ladder of opportunity, and they transform people's lives. And I go all over the country visiting businesses and meeting apprentices, and I meet those who've come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and they say to me just what a difference it has made. But there are economic benefits too. They've extraordinary returns for all involved. Below level 2 provides a net present value of £29 for every £1 put in by the government, and that compares to very well to full level 3 at £31. And at the same time, as I've mentioned, they help meet the skills needs of our nation. And there's plenty of opportunity, for example, for FE colleges to partner with local employers to design courses that are most likely to meet local skills needs. So how can apprenticeships help with the economic recovery and, as the Prime Minister might say, help businesses build back better? I think there should be reform of the apprentice levy so that more funding is used by companies employing apprentices from disadvantaged backgrounds or in courses meeting the skills needs of the nation. I'd love the government to introduce skills tax credits to incentivize businesses to retrain workers without high-level qualifications, but in our vital skills needs. And I really welcome that the government has said they're giving £3,000 to businesses who employ young apprenticeships. But we need to make sure we have the right kind of apprenticeships, both to boost social justice and our skills need. And we can't allow large employers from drawing down on funding for existing training programs just rebadged as apprenticeships. I think 17% of levy-paying employers have admitted to the practice. And I mentioned to you about 25.7% of level 2 apprenticeship starts come from the most disadvantaged areas in England, while higher level apprenticeships have flourished in recent years. Uptake of level 2 has fallen from 65% of all apprenticeships in 2013-14 to just 31% in 2019-20. So rather than de facto squeezing out level 2 apprenticeships, I think the DfE should be encouraging them, but establishing properly signposted progression routes onto higher levels. I believe in standards, I absolutely believe in level 3, but we need to acknowledge that many individuals don't have the basic skills or feel confident enough to go straight into a level 3 apprenticeship equivalent to 2A levels, and they're vital stepping stone for disadvantaged learners. And just to conclude, I think civil service should lead the way, the public sector. Aside from HMRC, the civil service did not even feature in the top 10 apprenticeship employers, despite being one of the largest employers across the UK. So investors in people have a lot of work to do. I think we need to increase the apprenticeship target to be much higher than the existing 2.3% for public sector. And I also believe that where possible, all new recruits to the public sector should be offered an apprenticeship. And on public sector procurement, there should be huge hurdles for companies to jump over in terms of the numbers of apprenticeships that the companies must employ to get that vital government contract. And on degree apprenticeships, we should be bold and have a target of 50% of all students doing degree apprenticeships. And it can be done, even if the recent upwards trend in degree level apprenticeships continues at the same rate. We need to restart the degree apprenticeship fund, which should form the levy so more can be used for degree apprentices, and we need wage subsidies for employers taking on degree apprenticeships. And the 800 million access fund that the universities spend on diversity isn't very successful. Too many disadvantaged people aren't going to university, or if they do, they're going to lower tariff universities and dropping out. So why not use that fund to fund degree apprenticeships? So I think actually we can change the system. Attitudes are changing, the culture is changing. The skills were central to the government's Queen's speech. I was very excited about that. The government have offered a lifelong learning guarantee where anyone can have access to a loan to do more education and training, and that will come in through over the next few years. And also we've increased the prestige of apprenticeships, with many middle class parents wanting their child to take vocational qualification, 43%, as they wish for their child to go to university, which is 45%, which means possibly we're finally reaching a parity of esteem between vocational and academic education. I'd like to have a mixture of both. As I always say, I don't want just people to learn the names of fish, the academic side. I want people to learn how to fish as well. And I hope very much that with the work of investors in people, we can transform apprenticeships and build an apprenticeship and skills nation in our country. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'll build on that kind of vision of skills for the future and go to Claire next. Why do you think apprenticeships are so important?
Thanks, Beth. Okay, so I have lots of reasons why I think apprenticeships are so important. So recently I read a pretty scary statistic that only 1/5 of graduates are ready for work when they leave university and they start their first role. 1/5 is super low. If you think about all the time, money and energy spent on university by the other 4/5 of all those, that kind of thought just makes me feel a bit dizzy, to be quite honest. And of course, it's not just graduates. We're wasting the potential of all the people who, for various reasons, couldn't go to university despite their talents. So there's huge risk to both companies, individuals, and society if we don't create more apprenticeships. And I'm going to give you a whole list of reasons why. So strap in. So diversity is a business critical issue, right? Companies with the highest levels of diversity outperform their peers. So by looking beyond the university system, companies can find talented people from unconventional backgrounds that make a meaningful difference to their workforce. And offering apprenticeships to upskill your workforce leads to higher satisfaction rates and retention rates, super important, whilst at the same time leveling up the skills and productivity of your company. Apprenticeships can make a real difference to individual people's lives. We often hear the phrase that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. Only 4% of those claiming free school meals in year 11 make it to a Russell Group university. Graduate schemes are still more likely to recruit private school children, and graduate programs are still dominated by people who went to private school, with only 57% of those hired having attending state schools versus 90% of the population. At the same time, 11.3 million adults lack digital skills, putting a cap on their success in the modern workplace. So that means if you've grown up on free school meals or in care or experiencing some element of disadvantage, it doesn't matter how talented you are, you'll experience worse outcomes at every stage of your career. And I think that, and so does Multiverse think, that apprenticeships in work training have a really good chance to rectify this. And finally, there's huge societal need, as Rob pointed out. The tech revolution is changing jobs and means everyone will need some element of retraining in the next few years. The OECD estimates that 1.1 billion jobs globally are liable to be radically transformed by technology in the next decade, and there is nothing we can do about that. In the UK, there are over 100,000 unfilled data professional posts in 2020. And 81% of technologists state that COVID-19 has created the biggest technology pressure for their organization that they have ever experienced. Unless we get this right, it won't just be individuals losing out. The UK will fall behind and become less globally competitive. And I was super pleased, as Rob was, to see the government doubling down on their support for businesses taking on apprentices in the budget announcements yesterday. And I think that apprenticeships fit all of these needs perfectly. So applied learning means skills are embedded through application, not just learned in a classroom and then never used. Your coach means that apprentices get real-time feedback. And the fact that they lead to a credential means that they're not just useful for an individual in their current role, but they go on their CV and are used to build an entire career. But what's just as important as creating them is what goes into an apprenticeship. So I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing personally at Multiverse, which is creating a community of apprenticeships. So partly that's about removing the kind of FOMO from young people, right? They think they're going to go to university and have this great social experience. What we're trying to do is create that same social experience through apprenticeships, so you're not losing out at all. And it's partially about creating a supportive culture that ensures apprentices are more likely to complete their apprenticeship successfully. But most excitingly, we think having a real community can create more routes for people of all different kinds of background to succeed. Privileged people tend to know other privileged people and open doors for them. We're trying to level the playing field with our community at Multiverse.
Thanks, Claire. Love that. Love it. Awesome. On to you, Jack. Why do you think, what's your perspective on why apprenticeships are so powerful, maybe particularly for younger people?
Absolutely. What Robert and Claire said, I agree. I want to flip it, and I don't need to give you statistics. Those two have done really well into it, saying what the calls and what the data says and what we need to do. Let's turn to the actual individual. We're all human. We're all got ambition in life. We all have stuff that we want to achieve, but there is blockers. There is blockers for young people from social mobility backgrounds. There is blockers for young people that have hidden superpowers like autism or dyslexic. There is young people from BAME communities that are not getting the opportunity. Apprenticeships really support young people to thrive. I grew up in a council estate. I didn't have a safe space to live. My mum was an alcoholic and school was a place for me to try and fit in. I was bullied in school, I was bullied at home, and I never knew what my future would look like until an apprenticeship came along, until I could get up in the morning, get out of bed, flip that duvet, get into work, put my suit on and surround myself with individuals who I could learn from, who I could thrive from. And it gave me a purpose in life. So I believe that we all have that next door neighbor, that young guy, that young girl that you see walking down the street. We all have that family friend or that brother or sister or your daughter, your son. Apprenticeships really do give those individuals an opportunity to thrive. From an employer's point of view, because we've helped over 90,000 young people get into work, it's no longer a good deed. It's a future deed. And I say to any employers, if you don't hire apprentices, or you don't look at bringing a program on board that helps serve apprentices, you're an idiot. Your business is not future-proofed, and it's a commercial and social standpoint. Don't think that this is just an Andy app. So that is my point of view on why I believe apprentices are so important, along with all the great data and the statistics that Claire and Roberts give. We have to be more human, or as I say, be more sausage. We can learn more from sausage dogs, small but mighty, and they work hard. And that's what apprentices do. They work hard. They appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Love that. Thanks, Jack. Maybe that'll become my new motto. So I'll go to you now, Paul. Last but not least, what's your perspective on this?
Yeah. I mean, how do you follow those three brilliant introductions? But from my point of view, I come from a very similar background to Jack. I grew up in a council estate. My dad was an alcoholic and my mum had mental health problems. I saw so much potential in the area that I grew up in. I'm now lucky enough to live in a leafy middle-class suburb. The people that I live around now are no more talented, in some ways less talented than the people that I grew up with, but they don't have the same life outcomes. For me, getting into work and get training was my route out of that. So I joined the civil service at 17. Like Jack, got good role models. I did education at night school. I've now just become a non-exec at the college that I went to night school at. And that gave me the platform to move forward in my career. And then I went on to do an HR degree after that. But I saw too many people not have those opportunities. And good jobs and training provide that ladder of opportunity. And we need to find ways of creating more opportunities like that. And that's what I'm hugely passionate about. And that's what Investors in People is going to try to do going forward. I became involved in skills policy and a government role that I did in 2002. And prior to that, I had worked in prisons and in social security offices. So I had seen firsthand social deprivation and the impact that it has. And when I read the first skills survey back in 2002, I thought, right, we've got all these skills gaps and shortages. We just need to work and get that link between employers and education to work more effectively, and we'll resolve it. So in preparation for today, I went back and looked at the latest skills survey, the 2019 one, and I was shocked to see that the skills gaps and shortages that were reported in 2002 haven't significantly changed much, and what's knocking on for nearly 20 years further forward. We've still got 5% of businesses with skill shortages, and that's 70,000 businesses. There's 1.4 million businesses employing more than one person. So 5% of them have that's 70,000 businesses without the right, with real skill shortages. That's 70,000, minimum 70,000 opportunities that have been missed to bring people in to develop in that organisation. And 70,000 companies who are clearly not as productive as they could be because of skill shortages having their a really big impact on their ability to be productive. We also know that the UK has got one of the lowest levels of productivity in the G7, and that's heavily driven by our lack of investment in leadership and management capability, and also in developing the skills and capabilities of. So for me, apprenticeships, just like Jack says and Claire said and Rob says, is the right thing to do from a social point of view. It creates those ladders of opportunity that Rob spoke so eloquently about, but it also has a huge economic benefit for the country. And we need that now more than ever. I hear on the news all the time this week about how organisations are struggling to recruit the staff they need as the economy, starts to open up again. Bringing in an apprentice is a fantastic way of dealing with your skills gaps and shortages, not just for the short term, but for the long term. Now, I'm in a fortunate position, being the Chief Executive of Investors and People. We get to review thousands of organisations every year. And the best organisations that I see are organisations who have invested in apprentices and brought them up, and it's part of their business strategy. It's central to their overall business plan and how they organise their work and how they develop the strategy for the business going forward. So for me, it's about all of us collectively working with the government, working with employers, working with training providers, working with further education, higher education, and finally finding a way of how we solve this productivity puzzle. Because in 20 years, with all colours of government, we've not been able to do it, and we now need to do it much more than ever. And our part of Investors in People is to create frameworks that shows what good looks like and get as many employers as possible adopting those frameworks. And that's why, and I have to say a big thanks to Rob. He was the one that instigated us developing a framework around about apprenticeships. And we're working really hard to get that in front of as many employers as possible. We've had really good early success. DFE have signed up to do it. Iceland have signed up, Coca-Cola. So we've got lots of large organisations getting on board, but we need many, many more, not only agree to do apprenticeships, agree to offer apprenticeships, but agree to offer high quality apprenticeship schemes. And only by doing that will we create the ladder opportunity for more people in the country and to help more organisations succeed and prosper.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Well, I'm sure the rest of you that are listening to this have got the renewed passion that I have for apprenticeships. I think all of those arguments have been so exceptionally powerful. We've talked a bit about FOMO. I think now if you don't offer an apprenticeship scheme, you've probably got FOMO from that. We've had some really great questions come through already on the Q&A. I'm just going to give a little bit more time for some more to come through. And while we do that, I wondered if I could go back to our lovely panel and just say, any reflections on what you've heard from each other? What have been your kind of takeaways?
I'm going to be dreaming of sausage dogs, I think, after that. But I'm happy to take questions, I think, because no doubt your audience has got questions.
Okay, I'll get stuck into those. Let me have a look. Yeah, so we've got a brilliant one here from Paul. Should we be more balanced in our discussions, in that we should be looking at ways to help people retiring earlier, but in a phased way pass on their knowledge and open up more opportunities for our young people with real roles available? The apprenticeship approach to grow. What are your thoughts on that one?
Are you asking me, or Beth, or anyone? I wasn't sure.
I'm happy for anyone to take it. If you wanted to kick off, Rob.
Well, it's a good question. If they mean by providing mentorship to younger apprentices when they're retired, is that I'm not sure what the question is asking for, but absolutely, people who are retiring or in more mature ages of employment. Having said that, they can do apprenticeships themselves, and they should do in areas. It isn't just about young people. But if they can mentor, they might have done an apprenticeship themselves when they were younger. And if they can mentor an apprentice, it's likely to lead to a much better outcome for the apprentice that they're mentoring.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, Paul? I can see you've come off mute.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I've seen some examples of Investors in People companies where, they have people who do exactly that. They're senior in their career, and it's a bit like how apprenticeship started off centuries ago, where you learn from a skilled master and you then train the apprentice. The apprentice is trained by the master. And if organisations have a proactive, and I see that more and more where people have phased retirement, it's a great way of them passing their knowledge on as they phase out into retirement and other people come in. But as Rob said, more and more of us are going to have to work longer and longer, so we'll probably have numerous careers through our lifetime. So the ability to pass on that knowledge is going to be more important than ever.
At Multiverse, we have a mentoring scheme for people external to Multiverse to mentor apprentices. So we're always welcoming new people onto that. I think our last cohort was just over 100 pairs of mentees and mentors. So always looking for experienced mentors for that program.
And I would add that mentoring is two ways, and you can learn from the young person as much as you can learn from the experienced person as well. So reverse mentoring is so important, and you'll be surprised, anyone who's retiring or wants to mentor young people, whether that's through Multiverse, whether that's through another organisation, actually think about, well, I'm going in this with my eyes open as well, and the mentor should have the pen and paper ready as well to learn from the younger generation. So it's a win-win.
100%. Thank you, guys. We've had a couple of questions come through from Zara and Claire, saying thank you for the very inspiring speeches. I agree with that. And also, what advice would you give basically on how to start if you want to put in an apprenticeship scheme? You know, where to go for information, basically where to begin, because it can be a little bit overwhelming navigating that landscape.
I can try and take this one. So I think the government does have a nice, clear website that explains the levy and how that works in particular. And I can obviously talk to how Multiverse starts this process as well. So we have a skills assessment, so we can look at the skills in your company, identifying gaps where you might want to bring in new heads, and looking at other areas of skills development where you might want to be upskilling members of your company as well, depending on what the goals of your company are. So that's how we go about it. I think identifying the gaps and how you'd like to fill them is a really good place to start, because that is, after all, one of the main reasons for bringing on apprentices.
I would add by saying, if it doesn't matter what size your company is, you can all take on an apprenticeship and take on a young person. I'm a big believer, if you're not too sure how to start, go from having all the answers to all the questions, because there's people out there that can help you navigate, set up the right program. And there's like Multiverse, like the government's website, like Investors in People. There's a number of organisations that do this every day. So actually go from having all the answers to all the questions, and reach out and ask the community, I want to take on an apprentice. I want to take on an apprentice. What do I do? How can I make it meaningful?
Could I just say that you're absolutely right. There is a lot of, compared to when I mentioned to you that I met those pupils in 2008 who'd wanted to do an apprenticeship. The landscape's been dramatically transformed since then. The websites are much better. The information is out there. But what I would also do is, if you are in an area with a good further education college, and most FE colleges do incredible work on apprenticeships, I would contact them directly, because they will have provider schemes. They will also, they do a lot on apprenticeships. And in my own area, Harlow College is at the forefront of helping local businesses train apprentices in all kinds of fields. And if there isn't an FE college, then there are great companies, and this isn't just an advert for White Hat Multiverse, but it is a great training provider. And I've had apprentices in my office who've both been trained by Harlow College, and because there was a particular course, the most recent one was trained by White Hat Multiverse, its former name, and they did an incredible job. So the providers, whether it's FE or the private providers, can often provide a lot of really good advice and tell you who to contact within government. And I promise I haven't been told by Multiverse to say all these nice things about them. I really mean it.
Thanks, Rob. Anything to add there, Paul?
I think you've covered it. I would agree that there's been a lot of work done to improve the information, advice, and guidance. The only one additional thing I would say is, I think I saw a point as well about schools and the careers guidance. I've got a 16-year-old, and I still feel when I'm engaged with the school, the paradigm is still the academic route. And I think we need to help teachers more around it. And I know there is work being done on that and the information, advice, and guidance. I think if you've gone through the academic route, then you tend to default to that. You've got a bias towards it, whether it's conscious or otherwise. And I think we need to get more voices inside schools about how transformational apprenticeships can be. I do notice that parents are definitely changing their attitudes to it now as well. But I think there's still that element as well of getting that advice, not just to the individuals, but to the employers too.
Can I just mention something else, Beth? I don't want to hog this, but unless you want to move on, but it's just because Paul has touched on careers, and he's absolutely right. And I probably should have mentioned it in my opening remarks. I think this is the one area that there is a huge shortfall, and I have met apprentices, even doing degree apprentices, who haven't been allowed to. They've offered to go back to their own school to talk to the pupils about apprenticeships, and they've been denied that opportunity because the schools just wanted to focus on university. And for one reason or another, there are too many schools that don't do enough on apprenticeships and skills, and there isn't enough proper careers advice on apprenticeships and skills. When I was a minister, I brought in a clause called the Baker Clause to say that, in essence, what that meant was that schools had to invite apprentice organisations and FE organisations into the school to encourage skills and apprenticeships. But it hasn't, if I'm honest with you, it hasn't really worked. There are too many still not doing it. And I think there needs to be much sort of tougher Ofsted recommendations on this when they inspect a school, because we aren't going to get more apprentices unless the schools are evangelizing about it, and the careers organizations that go into the schools are evangelizing about it. And it is a real black spot in terms of all the good things that are going on to try and encourage apprenticeships in our country.
Rob, can I ask another question of Robert? If you think that that might be because schools are measured in some way, at least, on the number of students they successfully send to university, rather than the number of students that successfully go on to positive outcomes, be that university apprenticeships or further training. You get what you measure, right? So maybe if we change the way that we measure a school's success, we could change that outcome.
Well, you've got it in one. And what the problem has been the culture has been university, 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 when it should have been skills, skills, skills. And it doesn't mean, as I said, I went to university, I had the best time of my life there. I'm very pro-university, although I do think, as I've mentioned, more people should be doing degree apprenticeships. We also need to, what the other issue is that all teachers have to be graduates in order to become a teacher. And I think actually we should allow undergraduate teaching degree apprenticeships. We have nursing degree apprenticeships, we have policing degree apprenticeships, we have apprenticeships in the armed forces, legal apprenticeship degree apprenticeships, and engineering degree apprenticeships. Yet for some reason, we don't allow degree teaching apprenticeships except at postgraduate level. And I think that would encourage a lot more people to do teaching, especially in disadvantaged areas, because they'd be earn while they learn. And I think it would then change the culture, because if these teachers had done apprenticeships themselves, they would have a much better understanding of the kind of benefits that apprenticeships can bring. And that's not to knock the incredible work that teachers and support staff do. And I know they try to promote it where possible, but all the stats show it's just whatever the efforts of individual teachers and support staff, promoting apprenticeships and skills as a number one priority is just not working at the moment. So there have to be changes.
Thank you for that. And that's actually one of the questions that came through on the Q&A, Rob. So I'm glad that we've diverted down this path. I'm aware that we've only got you for another sort of 10 minutes. So I'm going to fire a couple of questions that I think are kind of specifically towards your angle. We've got one here asking what the government's doing to encourage small businesses and to make it easy for them to hire apprentices. That's from Deborah.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. The government are giving £3,000 kickstart program, an apprentice program for businesses to hire apprentices, and that's quite a significant sum of money, any business that hires apprenticeships. And I think that's good. I mentioned in my opening remarks I'd like them to go further and introduce a skills tax credit. I think that would be good. The other thing is it's only big business that pays the unspent levy. That's about 2 to 3% of businesses. Where there is unspent levy by the big businesses, the idea is that money is reallocated to spend on apprenticeships elsewhere in the system. But I hope very much that the £3,000 and the other sort of support there is for different kind of apprentices, especially younger ones that businesses employ, will make a difference.
Thank you for that, Rob. And we've got another one here from someone that submitted it anonymously, asking how the government can encourage greater collaboration between FE colleges, HE institutions and independent training providers to improve apprenticeship provision in terms of availability and quality, as in some areas, particularly in construction and infrastructure, it can be quite poor.
Well, I think I'll answer it, but I think Claire would be very, very well. I'm not just trying to lob you on it, Claire, but I think you'd be very placed to answer this. But I think the problem with our education system is that too many organisations operate in silos, and we should have a much more cohesive. I'd like FE and HE to work very closely together as partners. Like there'd be a conveyor belt between, vice versa, kind of conveyor belt between the two organisations. At the moment, we just see FE colleges, and then we just on one side of the room, and FE colleges on the other, and providers on the other. And providers have an important role in supporting FE colleges. Sometimes FE colleges actually hire private providers to do some courses that they don't, and private providers can step in where FE colleges don't have the courses in certain areas in the country. But there has to be a lot more working together, a lot more partnerships. And Warwick University, I went to Warwick University, and it was incredible really what I saw. They had the UTC involved with the university, the FE college involved with the university. They were supporting technical education. They were sponsoring children from school, all the way through to try and get them to go to do skills or degree apprenticeships or academic degrees. And I think Warwick University is a really good model that other places could follow. Warwick, I should say, sorry.
Thank you. Yes, Claire, did you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, well, I don't feel like I can speak on behalf of the government about what they could do particularly, but I know that at Multiverse we have an outreach team that goes into colleges and sixth form colleges, etc., to talk about apprenticeships specifically to make those young people more aware of the options that they have available. I can't speak to how difficult that is. I think sometimes we get a warmer welcome than others, but obviously the more the merrier.
Thanks both. And I've got a question for you now, Jack, if I may. We've had one come through from George saying that according to UCAS research, 1/3 of school pupils are first thinking about higher education in primary school. That's certainly true of me. I wanted to be a nice cream band lady. Does careers advice need to begin at primary, do you think?
I think careers advice needs to begin at home with the parents to start with. Just yet again, the number of young people we speak to and in our community, and me growing up and other millions of other young people across the world, is they need to have a meaningful conversation at home to start with their parents. So we need to educate certain parents on what does it mean to open their landscape. But absolutely, we need everyday role models going into schools, and there's some great incentives like Founders of Schools that do this and send entrepreneurs in, but we need to see more. I remember in school, I only probably had 2 visits from a professional coming in 2005, coming into the school. And one was a police officer, and I can't remember the other one, what they did. But we need to show the inspiration of what careers you can get into. Also, we have to change the narrative that you can have a really successful career in construction, Construction, I was told, Jack, you're never going to achieve anything. You should go and be on the building site. What the teacher should have said and the career advisor should have said is, Jack, if you get in construction, you can earn more than a doctor, or you can go into marketing, you can go and help Foster and Partners build the next Gherkin, and you can do all these different things. So I think we need to start by actually educating at home and then really showing everyday role models for young people at primary school to say, look what you can do, look what you can be, and bring more people into schools.
Love that. Thanks, Jack. Yep, I'll go to you, Paul. You've got your finger up.
I just wanted to kind of build on what Jack said that there and support that. I think one of the things we've got as an issue is a poverty of expectations, and that somebody said to me once, you can't be it if you can't see it, and unless you can see someone relatable that you think, well, I can be like them, then how do you work towards that, and how do you see a pathway towards that? And there's a great example. I had my boiler went on the blink, and the guy that came out to fix it turned out was in my year at school, left school with no qualifications, but has now got his own very successful central heating business. And he said, but there was never, he got into it by luck, just by someone knowing someone, and he got the right opportunity. And it shouldn't be luck. It shouldn't be luck that donates it. Luck is obviously an element in all walks of life, but systematically, we need to help parents understand that the impact that their expectations have on their children will then impact what they see as their life chances. And equally in schools, that everyone has got potential and everyone can be something, not necessarily the academic route, but they can all be something. And I think we need to really work on that. And for me, that's a marketing and a comms thing that needs to change. And I'm a big believer in the Pygmalion effect. You become what you think you can become. And I don't think enough. I've asked a number of teachers at parents' nights about how do they think about the Pygmalion effect. And very few of them even know what it is, which I find quite surprising. If you believe someone can achieve something, they will rise up to that. But if you don't create the expectation that they can, then they won't. And I think we have a real poverty expectation that we need to deal with.
Yeah, over to you, Rob.
I have to sadly depart now to a constituency event, but could I just say that actually one of the most brilliant comments was from Jack when he said actually careers advisor got to look at the parents too, and he's absolutely right. It starts at home, encouraging people to do apprenticeships. And I remember being at a skills fair, massive national skills fair in Birmingham, and a parent was with their daughter who'd previously wanted to go to university, and I stood by this amazing stall from a company where they were talking, and I said, look what you can do, look what an apprenticeship can offer you. And the parent said, was talking to their daughter about it, and then the daughter sort of almost decided, just by being at that stall, talking to me, talking to the parent, that actually she wanted to do a highly skilled degree apprenticeship. And I was so happy because I thought, well, I'd converted someone to an apprenticeship. So the role of the family is absolutely important. As conservatives, I'm a conservative. I mean, I shouldn't forget that either. But thank you very much, all of you, and well done to Investors in People, and keep at it. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks so much, Rob. Have a great day.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. So I'm just keen to squeeze in a couple more questions before we hit our hour. I guess there's a couple that have come through, sort of touching on the role of line managers, apprentice line managers, but also managers that get apprenticeship schemes in place. What are your views on how they can be supported and have the right skills to make apprenticeship schemes successful? Yep, I'll go to you, Paul.
Yeah, that's something that's come out very strongly in our research about what a quality apprenticeship needs to look like. Just expecting someone in a management position just to look after an apprentice without giving them the support in order to enable them to do it well won't work. And I think all the research shows that we don't invest enough in our managers in the UK. We've got over 2 million accidental managers. That's people that have been put in a management position without the proper training. And especially if they're dealing with a young person that's a first experience of work, their relationship with that line manager will have big impact on them, not only in the short term, but in the long term as well. So I think it's really important that we support people to be good managers. And I don't think we place enough emphasis on that in all aspects of our working life, but particularly around about how we prepare them to support an apprentice. And I know like Multiverse do great things around about mentorship schemes and all, etc. But their main experience will be of the line manager, and much more work needs to be done to help them do that well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is probably on the providers, on individual providers, to support line managers. As you say, a line manager can make or break an apprenticeship experience regardless of everything else. So we are currently exploring how we can help line managers, support line managers in their own success, growing as a manager. It takes extra special other skills to manage an apprentice who often it's their first position straight out of school, and so we're exploring how we can best do that.
And I would add, I'm a big believer the power of today is in the follow-up, and I never obviously put a promo into the youth group in any of the work I do, but we launch a toolkit. It's 150, it's a set of 150 documents, resources, one-pagers with the New Zealand government, and it's called Getting Employees Youth Ready, and it's for the everyday line manager. What's the first 10 tasks to do, or what's the first 10 things to say to the young person when they come in? How to, if a young person comes to you with a mental health challenge, how to deal with it. So that's been built with in partnership with the New Zealand government. You can search it on our website. It's completely free. Download it. It might help you. It might not.
I'll download it, Jack. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jack. Okay, cool. We're coming up to the last couple of minutes now. I'll just see if there's any last minute questions that have come through. So we've had one here that's quite, I guess, specific to investors in people, and that is, are apprentices able to share their experiences honestly without compromising their employment?
100%. That's our whole raison d'etre, is that we're independent, and we all the interviews and surveys that we do as staff are completely confidential, and we don't share any individuals. In fact, we organise the way that we capture information so that when we present it back to the employer, there's no way of them isolating an individual and trying to work out where that comment or where that information could have come from. So that's something we've got 30 years of experience of, and something we take hugely treat hugely carefully. So I can give complete reassurance on that point.
Thanks for that, Paul. Fantastic. So I think we're coming to a close. Thank you all so much for sharing your perspective and your points, or your expertise and advice. And for the audience, thank you so much for getting so involved through the Q&A. I think it really makes for a great session where we can all get lots out of it that's relevant to us. There's just one final request that's come through on the chat. I don't know if you've seen that, Jack, just if we can signpost to your website. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks again to our panelists.
Thanks to Claire and Jack for participating in this. It's greatly appreciated. Fantastic input. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Hope everyone has a very lovely day. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.